I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. The honor today of introducing you to the fabulous Brittany Young. The name of her business, and you're going to love this, People Over Profit. So, Brittany, without any further ado, we're just going to take a quick deep dive into your career journey.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask to start by you giving us maybe a 90-second introduction to yourself and why you got into the business that you're in today.
All right. Thanks, Donna, for having me on. And as she mentioned, my business is called People Over Profits. And what I do today is I coach CEOs and business owners to shift their relationship with alcohol and replace it with life-giving tools and freedom using my breakthrough BS method. And I call myself an executive success coach because I'm helping clients not only get sober and stay sober, but helping them redefine success. And success is not about materials, which is why we're putting people over profits.
There is so much to unwrap in that, and I love, love, love everything that you've said so far. So, tell me, in your industry, because we always put profits first, as you know, that's just how we're nurtured in this corporate world. Tell me, what's the biggest problem that you see in your industry, and what are you doing, or how are you working to fix that?
I think the biggest problem is people refusing to see alcohol as an issue. And for so long, it's been used as a business tool to make more
Mm.
money. It's been used as the scapegoat for corporations and for individual companies to say, hey, we're going to take clients out for drinks. This is normal. We take them out to dinner. We're going to pay for it. Corporations pay for happy hours. It's not a problem at all. And yet they're not recognizing people like myself that had an issue. And, some say it's up to the individual to come forward and say, hey, I need help with this. That's true. But at the same time, there should be some safety measures put in place for people who don't drink in the company and don't want to partake in, I have to, in order for me to sell, I have to do, this company dinner or drinks at the bar. Right. And so I find that the issue is we're using alcohol as a crutch and we're normalizing it and not seeing it as the problem.
And Brittany, what I'm hearing is when you say we're using alcohol as a crutch, it's not just us individually, but the corporate world as well,
100%.
because we're using that as a sales
Yep.
technique. Wow. Okay. So I'd love to hear more about what makes you unique in the way that you're helping others. What do you bring to the table that others aren't?
So there's your traditional modalities of Alcoholics Anonymous, rehab, outpatient services, and I am none of those. AA is, if I could paint the picture, you're in a church basement or a random room where you're keeping your story in that room, kind of like Vegas, everything stays there, nothing leaves. Whereas with me, I'm more about recovering out loud and bringing you
Mm.
into a special relationship with God. So, a higher power is what gets called into AA, and that could be a number of different things. For me, when somebody works with me, it's all about having that special relationship with God. I'm not trying to make you religious, but I am helping you facilitate what that relationship with Him looks like for your life and for your business. Because without God in your business is not going to survive or thrive. it will fall flat. So that's one way that makes me unique. The other way is really taking a look at emotions on a deeper level. So getting to the root cause of the emotion. Where is it in the body? How is it manifesting itself into dis-ease? And then how do we work through that root cause? Whether it's through somatic embodiment exercises, it could be journaling, it could also be actually and physically getting angry and allowing yourself
Mhm.
to process the emotion in real time and let it out as we're in a session together.
Wow. And it almost sounds like we're getting a little bit of therapy and definitely deep personal work through you.
Yeah, I'm not a licensed
Awesome.
therapist, but I'm married to one, so that helps.
That definitely does. You've got a good sounding board
Yeah.
there. So this is a very unique approach on coaching. So I'm very curious to hear, where do you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, what I also really love about this work is it touches on people's businesses. So it's not just, I need to get sober and stay sober. I'm also helping you navigate the challenges in your work. And we know, statistically speaking, I could throw a bunch of, stats at you around how alcohol impedes your progress, how it's not really helping you sell. But when we look on the other
Mhm.
side of either being sober curious or being sober, the fact that you get to choose sobriety and now you get to have the awareness that that was the thing that was impeding you. Now, where do we take your company? Where do we take your sales? How do we help your employees? How do we get them to recognize that this is the thing that's been holding you back so that they can start holding you accountable? And what that winds up doing for the entire organization is not only an increasing of sales, but those genuine personal relationships with ideal clients, as well as within your organization, starts to grow. So you take away the alcohol, you get to the root cause of the issue. Everyone starts to benefit because you, as the leader, are making significant and impactful choices for yourself that ultimately will impact the entire organization.
Wow. And can you tell us personally what your experience was in getting to the place where you are now with your business?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little background of my story and then bring you to today. I grew up, it was a very normal childhood, but I unfortunately at 17 started drinking to fit in. And then I was sexually assaulted at 17. And so my drinking became my outlet. And I had a lot of fear around sharing what happened to me with others because that person told me to keep quiet. And I believed them.
Mm.
And I never sought help. I didn't think that it was a problem. I just kind of swept it under the rug. And alcohol was my scapegoat. It was something that I allowed myself to use as an emotional outlet. And so unfortunately it continued for 10 years. My drinking career was the only thing that I cared about, but it got me fired from my first corporate job and it landed me in some really awkward positions with family members as well as relationships with friends. So when I decided to surrender in 2013 of September, and I gave my life to God and I said, "Look, I can't continue doing this. I need help." My entire life turned around. I got sober by way of CrossFit. I joined a CrossFit gym and I spent a year and a half under a mentor who was also sober, getting the help that I needed through his way of teaching and also using weightlifting as my therapy. And then I moved to Texas shortly thereafter in 2015. and was working in oil and gas of all the fields where, a steak dinner and a beer is how you go and how you sell. And I often would have to say to clients, I'd rather do a lunch than a dinner and get questioned. Why are you doing this? And my boss would say, we need to take them out to dinner. This is how we sell. And that really convicted me to say, I'm not doing this. I'm doing it my way. So I started selling my way and unfortunately was laid off in 2017 from that position for doing things my way. But it really sparked my belief in self of going, you know what? I'm going to go out on my own and start a business. So I started my business in 2017 and it has gone through different iterations from personal training, people in recovery from getting out of rehab and helping them with their health and wellness, to sales coaching and consulting. And now, fast forward to this year, in January, I had two of my biggest clients say, thanks, but we're not renewing our contracts. And I thought, wow, this is not okay. My income basically dried up and I was trying to figure out what's next. And God sat me down and gave me one word and he said, sobriety. And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. But I've weaved it into my sales consulting business and really focus on redefining what success is without alcohol and what is success without looking at it through a material lens. And it's very individualistic. I'm sure that you have a personal definition of what success looks like for you as much as I have
Mhm.
my own. And so helping a client redefine what that is and how that plays a huge role inside the relationship with their business.
Wow, that's so impactful. And a couple of things that I was hearing, Brittany, is that number one, it takes a village. As women, so many of us try to do everything on our own, but you had a village that was supporting you in your recovery, helping you rebuild and grow, and then to be in a place where you could thrive, and are now really really impacting so many lives, I'm sure.
It definitely takes a village. I don't think I would be here without certain mentors and certain groups of people. That is for darn sure. Um, and my family, having been backed by them and belief in me, there's nothing short of a miracle there to rekindle those relationships that I thought were lost. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so important too. So share with us, what's the biggest failure or challenge that you've faced this thus far in your life, and how has that shaped the way you're doing business today?
That's a very interesting question because I don't view failure as failure. I view failure as giving up and deciding not to move forward. So, for instance, if, I got to the place in my business where I failed earlier this year, where income wasn't coming in, and I just said, I'm throwing in the towel, that's it. That to me is failure. So I've redefined that as I've redefined success. And the way that that shows up in my business is helping clients also see failure as growth opportunities because we can never really fail. Only if we give up is when we fail. And I'm not somebody that's going to lay down and just let you run over me. You can tell that way by my personality, but also, there's grit and there's resilience in building a practice and building a business. As you know, Donna, in the financial services industry, being a woman in that industry, first of all, is extremely gritty. And, there's no such thing as failure. You have to stand out. You have to be the one that stands up and says, I'm going to fight to the death. And really, that's how I view myself inside my business and then also helping others in their businesses, you cannot give up on yourself. You have to keep going.
Whew, I feel like I've been to church. That
Yeah.
was seriously, that was very empowering, and I certainly appreciate that. And a word that you use that really resonates with me too is grit. So knowing that, it's going to take a little bit of work. We got to do the work, but we can't just lay down and give
That's
up.
right.
So that was beautiful. All right, here's another off the wall question for you. But if you could have lunch with one person, whether they're living or deceased, who would it be and why?
Do I have to pick one?
Almost everybody that I've talked to asks that same question. No, we got time for two or three.
I think the first person would be my grandfather. I miss him dearly. He was my best friend. He came over to this country at 16 in the middle of the night on a boat from Ireland. And
Mhm.
he moved to New York City, worked with his, two sisters in a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. And he was just such a man's man, and I just miss him. I miss having that conversation with him, laughing with him. He had that thick Irish brogue. So he would be my number one. Number two would be Jesus, because why not?
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to have lunch with Jesus? Break bread with the Lord. Um, and there's many reasons. One, to literally soak up his presence, and two, just to be surrounded by God. How cool is that? And I think the third person would be Brene Brown, and being able to pick her brain on grief. That's what she's known for. And, how does that show up in the business world? And how are we not using it as a friend, but seeing it as an enemy?
Ooh, I want to be there at that lunch with all three of them. Can I join,
Absolutely. Let's
please?
do it.
Oh, I love everything about that. Well, this has been a fabulous interview. And what I'd love to know is for you to share with our guests, how can they contact you? What's the best way to get in touch and learn more about how they can work with you?
Well, there's a few ways. The community that I have is called Quit Like a Leader. And that's for high achievers who are looking for a sober, curious community that they haven't found yet. And it's as much about business networking as it is about exploring, being sober curious. And sober curious is really about either giving up alcohol altogether or at least choosing to cut back and seeing how it's impacting you in your life and your relationships. So that would be number one. Number two would be LinkedIn. I have been building over there, and I think that that is really a great platform to network with women business owners who are looking to grow, both in faith as well as in fight, right? Because we are fighting to have our voices heard. And I want to be somebody that supports you in that. So if you want to connect with me over there, that would be amazing.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you've heard where to make the connection. Now let's make it happen. Okay, so thank you so much for being my guest today, Brittany Young. I enjoy seeing you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna.
I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.